Hello, everyone. Time to spill a little tea. I thought I'd give you a quick overview of some of my exes. Now, this isn't a total amount of shit talking. Again, I try to be nice when I can, and just because I'm a little bitter about some of them, that doesn't mean there wasn't lessons learned from each one to the next. Things I learned about myself, what I will tolerate, what I won't tolerate, what I bring to a relationship, and what I don't. Um, and eventually, how I landed, with Mark. How I met him will probably be another video, because that's got its own trajectory. But I thought I would just touch base on each of them, maybe give each of them, 1 or 2 minutes. This might be a longish video. If I look at it at the end, we'll see. But just touch on each of them. What went well, what didn't. So, I had girlfriends in high school. That's up to 18. The girlfriends were great. We're still friends on Facebook. There was limits to the relationship. I wasn't sure where I was with my sexuality. In my head, I kind of knew I liked guys. I thought maybe I just didn't like sex or intimacy, period, because I wasn't super into it when it came to romantic moments when I was a teenager. So, nah. But yeah, they were wonderful women. They still are. One's doing very well. I follow her on Facebook. The other one's a mother. So I mean, they're cool. So when I was 18, I came out. I'm 36, so I spent as much time out as I have in at this point. Met a guy through a mutual friend, and I was not out when I met him. He was the first gay person I had met, and I was into the rave scene at the time, more of an Insta raver. I basically went to Hot Topic and maxed out my credit card and started dressing like everybody that went to these electronic music parties. So I had met him when I was visiting Philadelphia. He was from New Jersey. And we walked through the mall and we chit-chatted, waiting for my friend to get done with work so we could all get in the car and go to this abandoned airport hangar in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. So we head out there, and playing with drugs at the time, we were going to split some ecstasy, and he bought a bum pill, like an aspirin or something. So we're dancing around, and he goes to make a move on me, says, "What would you do if I was going to kiss you?" I said, "I wouldn't stop you." To protect his anonymity, we'll just call him Jay. So Jay and I drive back, and I go back to my friend's place in Philly and then come back to Scranton. I'm in my first year of college, which I spent in Scranton. We continue to see each other back and forth, and I am, of course, head over heels in love. First guy that finds me attractive, I'm just, my cripplingly low self-esteem at the time and trying to find out who I am. I just go for it. He meets my parents. They don't like him. Introduce him to my friends. They don't really like him. They think he's kind of shallow and that he looks like Richard Simmons. So the relationship kind of wears on, and I start to more and more notice that he is kind of shallow and a flirt and just, I don't know. So how do we break up? In my desperate attempt to keep the relationship together, I weighed to one of his whims that I tried to include my best friend, and then he found a friend, and we would have a group intimate encounter. So that didn't go well, and I pretty much ruined it for everybody. I have to say, I was raised Catholic, and aside from the big one that I clearly don't follow, some of that stuff stuck with me, and I felt really not okay in that situation. So the relationship all but ended that night. By the next day, we had broken up. So lessons learned, not an orgy guy. Not big on superficial stuff too much. And just because someone likes me doesn't mean I have to like them back. Pure and simple. So, goodbye, Jay. If I should really have a fire right here burning so I could just get rid of him. All right. We'll go into JJ. The following summer, I was dating about 3 people. I had moved to Philadelphia. And when I'm single, I'm single. So, I was going nuts. JJ was one of them. I lived in Philly. He lived about an hour and 10 minutes away. He was in town visiting. I met him at a gay bar on chicken night. It was underage night. The older guys used to call it chicken night. And I had a good shtick when I would go out. I would bring a lighter with me because I smoked. It was still gross back then, but it wasn't illegal to smoke in bars. So I'd be there with my bottle of water, looking too cool for school and posing and posturing and all that dumb stuff you do when you're a kid and, trying to be hot. And I'd keep my lighter in my pocket and then walk up to people I thought were cute and say, "Do you have a light?" So I did this to him, and he looked totally disgusted to even see me, but he had a light. And we chit chat and BS, and we exchanged numbers, and I think we might have made out. And he goes home, and then we start talking, and then he comes to Philadelphia. And the first night we have a date, we drive from Philadelphia to the Jersey. I think we were Atlantic City or something, and it was all moonlight and roses, and we literally laid on the beach and we're watching shooting stars. I mean, it was perfect. Laid in the sand. We drive back. We stayed over, I think, a night at his friend's place. His friend was staying at like a timeshare at the beach. So we stay over there. We come back, and we're on the phone a lot, going back and forth, exchanging phone calls because I live in Philly and he lives far away, but we like each other. So we're going back and forth. I make a lot of trips to like where he's living. He does not make as many trips to come see me. I started college, and when I started college, I was new and young and gay on campus, and there was an LGBT club, and I mean, none of that happened. I went to a Jesuit college before that. They had a gay and lesbian student group, but it was run out of the counseling center. It was like Homosexuals Anonymous or something. So I should, the phone calls got further and further apart and then just stopped. There was no breaking point. There was no single event. It was just like he disappeared off the face of the earth. I got into calling him more and more and more because the lesson about neediness needed, I guess, happen. And that was one that would happen a couple more times because I'm a little dense about being such a vacuum of sucking neediness. So I called more often and he called less. And then the calls eventually just stopped for months. And then that was it. So lesson learned. Long distance is probably not for me. Take a look at the notes here, see if anything else jumps out. Yeah, long distance isn't good. Don't be so needy. It was my first semester at a new place. I should have enjoyed it. I should have enjoyed the novelty of being young and single and out and about. It was a beautiful summer romance. I think it should have ended there. He was a great guy. There was nothing wrong with him. He's still probably a nice guy. There's a lot of stuff about Mark that reminds me of him. And I've told Mark this. There's no news he's going to find out in any of these. So it was unfortunate that it didn't work out. I'd get calls from him periodically over the years. He might be or has struggled with substance use, and I think he likes the drunk dial, or used to, and maybe a friend request on Facebook here and there I would get. So wish him well. No ill feelings. So that's JJ. He was the other one. Now on to G. G was younger than me. He was the only guy younger than me that I was with. He was 18. I was 19, I think. These were all when I was relatively young. He was on a date with somebody else when I met him. And he was on a date with a guy that I had hooked up with. Again, when I was single, I was single. I enjoyed the company of gentlemen quite a bit. So we started talking. They were having coffee at some outdoor place or whatever. And we begin to chat, and we start walking around town, and he's very hyper, and he's like a big guy and like tall, huge. And so we went out a couple times. I was subletting a place in downtown Philly, so he visited. I think I remember he told me he loved me within the first 2 weeks, and I thought, well, that's nice, but it was coming on a little strong. I kind of doubted it. And then for some reason, something I did, I don't remember, but it was something I did. He stopped returning my phone calls. So of course I call more often, and he was living with his mother, so I'm leaving like messages on his family's answering machine. Your worst nightmare. I was your worst nightmare if you broke up with me, because I was having flashbacks to the previous relationship, and so my neediness tended to flare up. So that fell through, and then I had dated a couple guys in between, and then had a messy semester of college, and then ran back into him at a bar or something. We were both young, but we thought we were cute, and we were probably pretty manipulative, so we used to get into bars all the time, like to be able to drink even though we were young. And he had said he bought a house, which was cool, and he was looking to rent out some rooms. So I was like, great. So that summer, I moved in with him and my then college roommate. We all moved in. And I started to develop a rather transparent crush on him again. I was unbelievably jealous and preoccupied with everything he was doing. So, we're talking about snooping through computers. We're talking about calls, where are you going, where have you been, all sorts of stuff like that. I'm driving myself to distraction with it. And eventually a relationship did start to develop. I felt like there was a lot of conditions on the relationship. I was a smoker. I drank. I was not very good with money at the time. I was very poor with money, in fact. And these were things that were kind of opposite of him. He was super responsible. I mean, he owned a house at 19. And fiscally responsible. He sounded cheap, but he was just really good with money. And so I felt like in order to be in that relationship, I had to step it up on those things. And I felt like the pressure was high. I felt like I had to earn my space in the relationship. So I felt like I was trying really hard. And I think on his end, it probably looked like I wasn't trying hard enough. And we pushed at it, and we had some great times, and we used to go hiking and went on vacation, and his family was cool, and only visited my family a couple times, but they liked him. But the differences were hard. It was just difficult to try to make all that work. So it ended. I was on one end of the dining room table. He was on the other. I was crying. He was crying. It just wasn't gonna. It wasn't gonna fit. I remember hiding things I liked to do from him. The smoking was the best example. I had quit, as far as he knew. He might have suspected otherwise. I'd get up, walk to the subway at the little cigarette shop. I'd get a pack of basic ultralights, get on the subway, go to work, smoke one right when I got off the subway, feel guilty, feel like he'd find out, thought he had feelers out everywhere, would throw the whole pack away. By lunch, I'd buy another one. And it was sneaky because he kept an eye on our finances. We had a little bit merged and a little bit not. So that was just one example. I would try to do things I like to do in a secret way because I felt like if I told him, he would love me less, respect me less, and I felt like I was almost lying my way into his respect. So when the mask falls off, it makes a thump. And the lesson there was that two people who really care about each other, sometimes it just doesn't work. He's still a good guy. We stay in touch on Facebook a little bit. He had big goals and big dreams, and I think he went through with all of them. So there's no shade there. I wish him pretty well. And the last guy is D. D, I met the night of my last college final. So we're like 2004 turning into 05. Met him at the same bar where I met JJ, actually, years later. And he was Southern, and I thought wealthy and attractive, and older than me. I was 22, I think he was 30. And first thing he said to me was, I just bombed a law school exam. I thought, oh, law school. Forgot the bombed part, or that he was bombed. So we meet, we go to like an all-night diner, talk for 5 hours, and then meet a couple more times, and it was on the up and up. You know, we didn't mess around. Even the first night he stayed over at my place, we didn't do anything. And then he wanted me to go meet his law school friends, and I was nervous. It was like our first date. I'm like, sure. And then I realized that they're all kind of like him. They're older, have some money, they usually have like another job aside from law school, and they all drink hard. My first date with him lasted 3 days. We got snowed in, and it was more of a bender than anything, and I hadn't drank hard like that ever. So the relationship ultimately got very messy because I crossed over that zero barrier into substance dependence on alcohol while that was happening. I can't say whether or not he had a problem with addiction or an eating disorder, but some of the things that I've told y'all that I've had issues with, it looked to me like he was dealing with some of those too. And he didn't cause me to have an eating disorder or to become a heavy drinker or alcoholic or whatever you want to call it. But those things were in me. You can't make someone drink a fifth of vodka a day unless they kind of already want to. But I think in the hothouse of that relationship, I got sicker faster. I think it came on a little faster. And I became needy and jealous and possessive. And it ended, actually, I walked in on him having just finished sleeping with somebody else. He was in the shower and the guy was getting ready. I was oddly calm about it, probably because I drank a bottle of Jack while he was finishing his shower and deciding what he was going to say to me. and we split. It didn't take right away. I think we hooked up a couple times after that, and I was still really desperate and wanted to get back together, and it took me a while to get over that. Probably because I was drunk the whole time, and for the few years after, I wasn't sober enough to grieve the loss of that, and I was pretty bitter for a while. I had a therapist trying to cool my jets about it, but yeah, that took a while to get over. And then I was single after that until I met Mark, because there wasn't a big market for chain-smoking, bulimic 300-pound alcoholics. So that's me spilling the tea. Those are my gentlemen. The lesson learned from that one: two sick people don't make one well person. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and get the alerts too. And I will catch up with y'all soon. Bye.